New polling shows that Generation Z is facing mounting pressure from all sides. Financial strain, mental health struggles, and growing concerns about their future in a rapidly changing economy. Despite having the most access to education and connected generation in history, nearly half of Gen Z say they don't feel financially secure, and fewer than 1 in 5 rate their mental health as excellent. To unpack what's behind these numbers and how young people are responding, we're joined now by our correspondent Wyatt Sharp and journalist Jackson Gosnell. Now, Wyatt, let's start with the economic picture. Nearly half of Gen Z say that they don't feel financially secure. From your conversations and personal experience, what do you think why do you think money is such a pressing concern for your generation?
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I mean, I think the obvious one is that young people, as they're going to university, that's the first step in kind of their life in post-secondary. That's something that is getting more and more expensive. Canada's one, example, but Jackson can maybe talk about this too. University is a lot more expensive in the United States, obviously. As someone who's in high school right now looking at possible options, you can go to Canada for university, or you can easily spend $100,000 a year going to the school in the United States. So that's one example, I think. Even going beyond that, it's the, basic day-to-day things is after spending money on university, you still need to live your daily life. Your parents aren't going to be able to support you as much anymore. You're going to have to pay for everything. And then, of course, now, after you get into your 20s, into your 30s, you're going to want to start growing a family. And in order to do that, you're going to need to buy a house, which is something that's also becoming more and more expensive. So I think every kind of basic thing that young people look forward to in their life right now is becoming more and more expensive. And that's something that's making, a lot of young people pretty apathetic about the future.
And Jackson, do you agree with that from an American perspective? Do you feel like financial strain is number one on the stress list?
Absolutely. And I think for people my age, we're wondering when we're ever going to be able to afford a home because the American dream has gotten so far out of reach. In our country, we pride ourselves on coming here, working hard, raising a family, buying a home, all those things. And it's just gotten so far out of reach for so many people. And the can has been kicked so far down the road. To Wyatt's point about university costs, I pay a lot to go to school in the States. I'm not sure what it ranges here in Canada, but everything is just so expensive. And I think that our generation is focused on getting good jobs, but maybe there's not enough. And it's like, where do we go? How do we sort of move forward and make sure we have successful lives?
Well, and I think a big takeaway is that a university or a college degree years ago used to mean a lot more than it does now. Now it's the trades and things like that, and those jobs that are really taking off and are securing more, job security. But Jackson, there's also growing burnout and anxiety reported in the workplace, especially among younger workers. What do you think is driving that burnout, and how are Gen Zers redefining success or career expectations?
Well, I think people are trying to focus on things they're passionate about. At least for me, I am. I've seen my parents do the corporate job, right? Go to work from 9 to 5 and perhaps not love what they do. And so I think that if we're going to be spending a lot of time, everything is so expensive, we might as well do something that we enjoy. And there's so many different avenues for how you can make money now. You can be self-employed. You could do social media. You can have rental properties. There's a range of things where the education, yes, is still important. And I want my doctor to have a degree. But if they're coming out to fix my toilet, for example, a plumber, that's a trade that is a really good profession where you can earn a huge living. And I think that those college degrees, to your point, are not as important and superior and prestigious as they were before. As for the Gen Z getting burnout on work, I think that's just because we've seen how many people can have jobs and it doesn't have to be the 9 to 5 thing. And so when people are stuck in that, maybe they are burning out a lot more easily. We're going from school every day from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. A job hits a little bit differently. It's more responsibility and maybe they weren't prepared for it.
Well, and on that, I'll ask both of you this. Do you think that because Gen Zers are a little more, they're a little more focused on the career field that they want to get into, and they're a little more particular, and they don't want to go to a 9 to 5 job where they're not enjoying it and it feels like a routine? They're holding out for something that they think is worth it. Do you think that goes hand in hand with that financial strain that Gen Zers are feeling because
Yeah.
they're choosing to wait for a job opposed to just take that 9 to 5 that maybe they're not happy doing, but they're making money?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it too is young people don't want to be working for other people. They want
Hmm.
to look to work for themselves as well. It feels like a lot of times right now, people are applying for jobs, but they're helping other people build their dream as opposed to, working to build their own dream themselves. And I would say another one of the problems that we're facing right now that's not even just in the workplace, but in educational institutions and schools as well. Again, someone still being in high school is that we're seeing just reduced attention spans as a
Right.
whole.
Yeah.
And that's something that even just in a basic 9 to 3, for example, in high school, students are having a lot of trouble with that. And so when they advance forward into university, into whatever career path they end up going down, they're having a lot of time focusing because, again, as Jackson pointed out, they just don't see a whole lot of merit or value in that traditional 9 to 5
Hmm.
because it's not really working to help build their future or their aspirations.
And just to add to that, in high school, I went to 4 classes a day, middle school, 6 classes a day. Now that I'm in college, I have to go and take a nap after having one class. So I don't know how I got through before then. I don't know if the expectation has been reduced for people our age to where we're just kind of worthless after we do one thing or what. But like even myself, I require naps. I feel like an elderly person now.
Well, and I think COVID-19 played a very large role
Oh,
in
yeah.
that. We went a year, almost two, without really having to go to work or do anything. It's hard
Mhm.
to go right back into that routine when
Mhm.
you see what the other side
Yeah.
of it looks like. And for some people, it looked pretty good.
Oh,
But
yeah.
another driving factor is mental health. And that continues to be a top concern. So, Jackson, why do you think that so many Gen Zers are struggling with well being right now, even in a time of more awareness and access to resources? I mean, we talk about mental health a lot more than we did years ago. So, why is the struggle seeming like it's getting larger?
Well, I will tell you, I think social media is largely responsible for that.
Hmm.
It's unfortunate because I sort of do social media as part of my job. So I don't like hating on it, but I think it's necessary.
Hmm.
On social media, everyone portrays their picture perfect life. Everyone is slim, everyone looks beautiful, nobody has any problems. The reality is that that's not true.
Hmm.
Everybody has problems, everybody uses filters to make themselves look better. Nobody has this picture perfect life, but we all think they do. The perspective is, oh, this person's life is perfect. I've got all these problems. And so then it really starts to eat you away if you sit and think about it. So I think social media is a huge driving factor of that. And then also to your point about COVID and everyone
Hmm.
being home doing nothing. I think it just sort of changed people's perspective on a
Right.
lot of things and just sort of drove them a little bit more crazy internally.
And why did you want to elaborate on that?
I mean, I think that's true. Again, going to school virtually over the course of the pandemic and just seeing how you were expected to all of a sudden one day be in class with your peers, with your teachers, with your friends on, a 6 hour, 8 hour a day basis, and then all of a sudden transition to being expected to do the same thing almost, but without the peer interaction and the fact that you're looking at a computer screen all day. Not only is that like harmful for your mental health, you're not getting out, you're not, interacting with people, but that's also, I think, part of the reason why people have become so addicted to various social media platforms and various
Yeah.
technologies is, teachers and people in the classroom are often quick to say, we need to get rid of these technologies. We need to teach people how to use them responsibly. But unfortunately, I think, in many cases, it was those same people who, over the course of the pandemic, were really trying to embrace these technologies, unfortunately, because we didn't really have any other options. But look where it's gotten us, right? It's gotten us to where if you go up to the average young person, their average screen time would probably be anywhere between 4 to 8 hours, right?
Mhm.
Like that's quite absurd, especially when you consider the fact that most people sleep 8 to 12 hours in a day. And so I think right now the main focus needs to be improving mental health, looking at how screen time, kind of revolves around that. And then also how, people using some of these technologies and being on their screens too much is actually taking away from their productivity. Because I think we have a productivity crisis right now as
Yeah.
well. And I think, social media and technology is largely responsible.
Well, I think there's a productivity crisis, but I also think it's a little bit of attention span.
Yeah.
And I do think social media plays a very large role in that. I mean, you're holding your phone most of the day. And when you get bored on Instagram, you go to TikTok. And when you get bored of TikTok, you go to X. You're constantly flipping and you're not stuck just doing one thing. I mean, there are videos of people in social settings where they choose to pull out their phone instead of actually have a conversation.
I just say the average young person now has a shorter attention span than a goldfish. That is the statistic that
Right. And
is known.
well, do you think that that lowering attention span is playing in with mental health issues?
Yeah.
Because opposed to being able to have that direct conversation or just being able to have conversation in general, younger people are choosing to keep it more to themselves and also just go to social media and find the outlets on social media opposed to having the friends in person that they can speak with and I guess blow off some of the steam that they're feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly part of it too, because you're mentioning attention span. People, young people especially, obviously are on TikTok. I go on TikTok as well. But the reason I think TikTok resonates with people is because you don't like something, you scroll. There's not many videos that are longer than 15, 30 seconds. And so, by people doom scrolling for, in some cases, hours upon hours upon hours, they're going to see a whole bunch more content and likely more content that's going to make them feel worse about themselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, Jackson's on TikTok. He can probably relate to that
Yeah.
as well.
I agree. And I think, now that we have so much choice in how we consume things, it really contributes to this short attention span. I don't remember this that well, but my parents said, back in the day, you had 30 channels to choose from on TV. And if you didn't like what was on one of them, you went to the next. Now we have so much choice, and that contributes to our low attention spans.
Well, Jackson, Gosnell, White Sharp, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you.
Thanks.